I guess I'll start by saying I love movies like this, where the pitch is completely different than the subsequent film that plays out. And essentially, the pitch for this movie is a strange man knocks on your door and he claims that the last time that you were outside, that somebody followed you into your house and that you need to unlock the door so you can flee. And that prologue to me, it feels almost like a campfire ghost story. And so I was in on this film from the get-go. And it's funny because this scenario is resolved in like the first 10 minutes. And then the rest of the movie, it revolves around like psychometry, I think is how it's pronounced, ghosts and a blind medium and like haunted objects. And it sort of simmers with dread and foreboding. And I think the movie pays off with a bunch of really, really well-timed jump scares, in my opinion. And I really, really was vibing with this movie for like the first hour or so. And then I think the downfall of Oddity is that the central mystery is resolved really, really quickly with about a half hour to go in the movie. And I think any audience member with a halfway decent head on their shoulders, they'll come to the answer even faster than the movie does, than it's actually revealed. And it was very predictable. But and then also the ending too. The ending brought about a really, really jarring tonal shift that sort of embraces humor a little late in a movie that is otherwise very, very deathly serious. And so I was sort of, as like the credits started rolling, I was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that was the ending. And but I feel as if, a flat ending, it hardly ruins the preceding 90 minutes. And I really, really like parts of this film. Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, that is Chuck, and this is episode 51. This week, we were given a choice. Number 1, you could watch a ripoff of Get Out. Number 2, you could watch the exhumation of Brandon Lee's corpse. Number 3, something a little more interesting. If you clicked on this video, you already know that we chose option number 3. We're watching Oddity. This is the new horror film from director Damien McCarthy. It's been making all sorts of waves in the horror circles. We're going to have a full review a bit later on in the show. But first, we're going to be talking about that Megalopolis trailer. You know the one. We'll also discuss everything else we've been watching in a very substantial watch list this week. And then we're going to close out the show, as always, with the Mentionables. Please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And now, a quick announcement before we get into the meat of the show. There was no minisode on the channel this week. Chuck's minisode will be released sort of in tandem with this episode. We're letting him cook, as Gen Z likes to say. But yeah, Chuck, anything else you wanted to say about regarding that?
Yeah, life just gets the better of you sometimes. I have a little boy with molars coming in. I have a little girl who's, been fighting a stomach bug on and off all week. I have deadlines up the wazoo at the paper, and everything's just kind of crazy in the Crane household. So I appreciate everyone, especially Matt, being gracious and allowing me just some extra time, because I'll be honest, this is not going to be another 30-minute video from me. It's a very bite-sized thing. It's going to be shorter than usual even. It's just a matter of being able to sit down, record, and edit everything. And I needed to have another run at my recording because I was interrupted so much, and it just, even though our quality is pretty mid, it's not up to that quality, as far as how we package everything together. We're hobbyists. We're not out for our, ad dollars or our super chat money quite yet. But if you keep on subscribing, everybody, we're nearly there. We're almost across the threshold. If we get to 500, it's a tall order, but everybody just keeps showing up, and I appreciate that. We've been getting a ton of views still on our Bone Tomahawk, review from way back when. We have over 1,000 people watching our Deadpool and Wolverine, episode from a few weeks ago, and yeah, the amount of views the channel has been getting has been kind of unprecedented and consistent, and we just have to maintain. Part of that is getting content out so that we're fresh in the algorithm's mind. So we'll just have to keep. That's why we're just going to give you a double dose and see what happens. But I just want to touch on what we're not talking about this week a little bit more, because good golly, Miss Molly, we already knew from the first picture that we saw of this new Crow movie that it was a mistake. We already if you were being real, you already knew that this was gonna be bad. But the question I have, I guess, it's I haven't seen the new Crow movie yet, but have you seen Alex Proyas's take on the whole thing? Oh God, it's hilarious, and you should seek that out, because his response, I think, I don't know, it's interesting coming from a guy that hasn't made a movie in a really long time. I remember back when we went to San Diego Comic-Con, he was on stage with Bradley Cooper at the Legendary Pictures panel talking about how excited they were to do Paradise Lost, that never ever have happened. That would have been legit had it occurred. Maybe it would have been terrible, but I was excited about that. But he really, even he treats the movie that he made in the 90s as kind of sacrosanct. It's this special thing. And a lot of that probably has to do with Brandon Lee dying, and the tragedy behind that. But we've been long talking about doing some kind of a retrospective on that, and bringing my buddy Steve Banyai along for the ride, because he first showed me that movie off of a taped off HBO VHS, way back. And it my little Catholic brain had never seen anything like it. That's my definitive version of it for some reason. And do you have any memories of that movie? Do you hold it dear to your heart, or is it just it's a pretty good movie that I saw once upon a time?
I just remember about The Crow, it being sort of, it almost seemed to me like one of those goth kid initiation rituals or something like that, where it was all of the goth kids that I went to middle school and high school with loved that movie, and I did see it, and I thought it was fine, but I can see why certain people based their whole high school personality around something like that. But I bet Proyas is feeling very vindicated now that pretty much everything he said has come true, and it's awful by all accounts.
And frankly, every Crow movie not involving him has been awful. The Edward Furlong movie that they made, they tried. There was even a TV series at one point that was really bad. They had the Crow going out in daylight. What are you thinking? I don't know. But moving on from that, because we don't want to slag on that anymore. Everyone else is already doing it. But what the hell is going on with Megalopolis? So that they finally found a distributor, and then that distributor just goes and pulls the biggest oopsie of promotion PR of all time, maybe, and just putting up dead ass fake quotes in a trailer, from reviews going back decades about Coppola's previous films. How does that happen?
Yeah, I have no idea. This is by all accounts, it's the worst, one of the worst instances of failing to vet something in a while. Because basically, this trailer starts off with Lawrence Fishburne narrating, and he says, "True genius is often misunderstood." And then it shows all these quotes from critics who basically supposedly critiqued Coppola's other films like The Godfather, Apocalypse Now, and Dracula, and none of this turned out to ever happen. Pretty much all these quotes were found to be either made up or like taken out of context. And I think some of them were sort of determined unofficially to be like AI generated because Variety went and did the legwork of like plugging these like the prompts into like Chat GPT. Like, give me a negative quote, like a critical quote on Apocalypse Now, and they found that the things that ChatGPT generated were very, very similar or almost exact to what was in this trailer, the quotes that were in this trailer. And so it was found out that this was basically the brainchild of a marketing consultant named Eddie Egan, and who has now been fired from Lionsgate. And so yeah, this is pretty awful. But what do you think the purpose of this was? Do you think this is like just like a attempt at the most like subversive marketing campaign ever? Do you think it was a bad joke? Like, what do you think happened here?
I can see what they were trying to do. Like, the
Yeah.
reaction to this movie has been almost universally negative by the film press at large, especially, from its screenings. Was it at Cannes that it first kind
Yeah,
of
I believe it was Can.
got
Yep.
shown to the world? And the feeling coming out of that from a lot of people was, oh my god, what a disaster. And there's just article after article about Coppola like unnecessarily like getting cozy with female staffers and actresses, like kissing on them and like weird shit like that. So like they needed to do something to like play off the press that was already there, but the idea that they would rely on unreliable like Chat GPT prompts when we know that it's like very prone to hallucinated information, which if you don't know is where the AI just like spins its wheels and just comes up with its own shit. Like if like I forget exactly what it was. Oh, like if you put a particular like question, like if I have 4 roses and I give 1 rose to this person and 1 rose to this person, how many roses do I have left? Almost
Mm.
universally, every single AI generator out there will get it wrong. And then
Oh.
defiantly, like, and when you push back and say, oh no, it should be this, they'll be like, I'm sorry, respectfully, no, you are wrong. Like, AIs are hilarious in the sense that they stick to their guns, even like they are not open to being disabused. Like they have a certainty built into their code. So if you
Mm.
just like, you could have been more precise, like this Eddie Egan guy, he could have been more precise in his queries. He could have been, can you show me some negative reviews for these movies over like like at the time, and it would be
Hmm.
able to retrieve that and show it to you. But if you ask it something open ended like that, it's kind of like asking a genie, something, or like, you know what I mean, like giving the monkey's paw the wrong request, and it will. And go ahead, sweetie, and it will show you whatever it thinks satisfies what you're asking, to its fullest, as opposed to giving you precision. The precision is on the user to
Yeah.
incorporate into it. And yeah, how could you be so sloppy? I have no idea how you could be so sloppy. Like if you're
Yeah, I mean
expecting,
what they're trying to do here is position Coppola as some sort of like misunderstood genius, and Megalopolis is a movie that won't truly be appreciated until like years from now. So you better get on the wagon now. You better get in there and get on the positivity wagon now, because in 20 years everyone's going to love this movie. And I don't know, yeah, like you say, it would have been possible to do this successfully because there are undoubtedly negative reviews out there somewhere for The Godfather and for Apocalypse Now. You could just fill the entire trailer with Armand White quotes, and
yeah,
there you go. Like
yeah,
you have you have, I'm sure he has a negative review for those movies. So yeah, I mean, it's just the biggest like failure at vetting something ever, and I'm sure they won't ever do that again.
It's okay. Yeah, and that's the thing. They're taking. Well, use the other spot that's more open, honey. Yeah, they're taking Andrew Saris and Pauline Kael and this John Simon guy from National Review and running them through the mud. And that's what's annoying. All they had to do was go to Google. They didn't have to use
Mhm.
Chat GPT to do this. But everyone is like, this is just the sign of the times. Like, you don't want to use the human agency enough. You're still relying on an algorithm when you turn to Google, but at least you know you're getting the genuine article most of the time, as opposed to
Mhm.
whatever is conjured up from the ether. And yeah, and I don't know, like after like watching the trailer a little more fully and like reading up on like who all these characters are supposed to be and what it's about and how it looks, like god dang, it just looks so weird. Like
Yeah.
it simultaneously looks like something for television. Like there's what is the difference between this and Chaos, that movie with or that TV series on Netflix with Goldblum in it? Like they look like they have the same production value going on, but then the cast
Mhm.
in this is all of these literal cast-offs from Hollywood for one reason or another. But then there's also people who are established and have no problems, like Giancarlo Esposito, or they're family members of him, like Schwartzman and Shire. So I don't know. Like it's a family affair. You have people like LaBouffe and Voight, and
Yeah.
the cast is just all over the place. And this honestly, this looks like what it is. It's a foreign funded drama with a Hollywood cast, but it has one of the goats directing it, and it's the movie he's longed to made for a really long time. Like this could have, like we said, this could have worked. They just fucked up. They fumbled the ball, and now they just have egg on their face, and everyone with a bad taste in their mouth about this movie or now has yet another reason not to see it.
Mhm. Yeah, we will. I can't wait to. I mean, we undoubtedly we have to do this for a review
Oh
because
yeah,
it's gonna be a mess when it comes out. I think it's September 27th is when
ooh,
it comes out everywhere, and so
it's soon.
yeah, we'll be able to judge.
Moving on to the watch list now. Some lighter fare. The this is this the I was able to watch on Netflix, Downtown Owl. It's based on the novel by what is it, Windmere, North Dakota's own Chuck Klosterman. And and so it's about North Dakota. I'm a North Dakotan. I have to be invested in this. I've never read the book it's based on. I own a great deal of the other things he's written about. So, and I've been following his writing in general. But the premise of this story is Lily Rabb is basically like a temporary teacher filling in this tiny town called Owl. And what this kind of has going for it is an authenticity that you might find in like some of the, god, I'm blanking on all the names I had lined up in my head. The the guy that did Dazed and Confused, Linklater, Richard Linklater. It
Yeah.
feels a lot like Bernie, like to that extent,
Mm.
where it's kind of like whimsical and it's stylized, but her husband is doing his doctorate and just wants her out of his hair, and so she goes to this tiny town to just fill in at the school. It's a town of less than 800, and it's just hitting all the stereotypes. But as a movie, it wears its literary origins on its sleeve. Like the way it's like narrated and presented, characters just kind of like just pop up to say one line and like basically wink at the camera like throughout it. Be like I'm the guy in town who just sits at the bar, and I have a funny nickname. and like Vanessa Hudgens shows up to be like like basically the town slut teacher who knows that if she doesn't wear a ring and goes to the bar, she'll drink for free all year round. And every single is it's set in the 80s, so like every single guy just like walks up to Lily Rabb and is like, "Oh, have you heard about that movie E.T.? I hear it's blowing up the box office. If we go down to Jamestown, we can see it. The movie theater in town closed." It's like, "Hey, we've just met. You're already asking me out on a date? Okay, I'll leave now." But like within like the first like 5 minutes of like the first bar scene, she has been like asked out to ET like 4 or 5 times. And that's funny. Like there's parts of it that are really charming, and it has a somewhat like tragic conclusion. And it's a quaint little movie. It feels like it's from another time. This is an indie movie from the early, like the late aughts, like like the initial like Netflix indie boom on streaming there. That's kind of the vibe you get from it. And and there's lots of people in here like Ed Harris who are, it's shocking that they're in a movie about North Dakota that gets North Dakota so right. Normally, like if you're making a movie about a small town, Hollywood just knows how to do one small town all over the country, and they very rarely like get the actual feel right. And this does, and I guess that's a credit to the source material and from Klosterman himself, and I guess to the director of this, whose name I'm blanking on. I want to give him some credit.
Is it Hamish Linklater?
Yeah. Oh my God, that makes sense now. And Lily Rabb.
Yeah.
She was a co-director on it, and T-Bone Burnett did the music. If you want a quick 90 minutes, just something light to end your day with, this is a pretty perfect way to do it.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds interesting. I mean, I would totally be interested in this. Let me ask you, as far as accents go, are people attempting it, or are they just not even bothering trying to do the North Dakota accent?
It's not very pronounced, especially in like the kids. The kids in the high school just sound like modern teenagers. But everybody who's a part of the local flavor, they are perfect. They are spot on, and it's not in the sense of exaggerated. They like that character right there who plays like a former quarterback star who's now just another yokel who never left. He's like a farmer rancher type. He sounds exactly like the guys in my hometown who never left. They work really well, and he like Ed Harris, even he's just being Ed Harris, but he nails it. I'm gonna go help November quick while I transition you over to Milk and Cereal.
Yeah, so my first entry in the watch list this week is Milk and Cereal. And this is cereal, not the kind that you eat, but cereal as in serial killer. So this is one of those YouTuber turned filmmaker situations. In this case, the boys over at the YouTube channel That's a Bad Idea, who normally do comedy skits, and they occasionally upload like a horror short. They have made this, I guess, almost feature-length movie. It's about an hour and 3 minutes, I believe. But basically, I mean, this has reminded me a lot of Skinamarink in that the growth of this has been very organic as people sort of share it online. I think when I watched it earlier this week, it was like 300K views, and now it's closing on like 500K. And so this thing is going up and up and up. And as far as this movie, though, I think I like the quality of the movie itself. I respect it more than I like it, I think. It's really, really interesting. They made this thing for like $800, and which I'm sure they've made it all back in like ad revenue by now. But otherwise, the movie stars just their friends, like their real life friends. And everything used to make it was like either borrowed, rented, or stolen, essentially. And so
proper guerrilla filmmaking in that respect.
Yeah, big time. And so The premise of the actual movie is basically like what happens when YouTube pranks go wrong, or what happens when a content creator is basically moonlighting as a serial killer.
Oh,
And so it's interesting. I mean, it's got an interesting plot. There's a lot of twists and turns that I honestly didn't expect. The acting is surprisingly good for a bunch of like literal amateurs. Um, and I guess the question of do I think this deserves all the notoriety it's getting is different than do I know why it's getting all the notoriety?
okay.
Because do I think it deserves it? Probably not. Do I know why it's getting all this notoriety? Yes. Because if I was like a 12 to 19-year-old kid who just had access to YouTube and I could watch this for free because it is completely free, I would think this is like the coolest shit in the world. Like this is like teenager like catnip. I this is like the type of thing like where when I was a kid and I watched like Pulp Fiction, I was like, "Oh my God, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen." And it's kind of the same thing with this, where if I was like a Gen Alpha kid growing up right now, I would think this was awesome. And the movie itself, it's starring, written, and directed by this guy Curry Barker. And there's definitely some very like eye roll worthy stuff in here where at the very, very end of the movie, instead of saying that when the credits pop up, instead of saying directed by, it says from the mind of Curry Barker. And so it's kind of like, oh God, give me a break, dude. But yeah, it's mostly good. It delivers on the twists and turns. Oh, the one thing I did really want to call out, because I think I'm probably one of the only people in the world that like caught this, is that there is a incredibly specific reference or an incredibly specific line reading that he took from The Dark Knight, like the movie The Dark Knight, the Nolan movie, and it's from the scene in The Dark Knight when the Joker like walks in on the like gangster meeting and does his like pencil trick. There's a part in that scene where somebody says like, "You're you can't do that. You're crazy, man." And then Heath Ledger, the way that he delivers his next line is very specifically done, and it's basically him going, I'm not. I'm not. Or like I do a really bad impression of it. But if you've seen The Dark Knight a million times, like anybody who's between the ages of like 25 and 35 has, you'll probably recognize it. And he does that exact like line reading, like the exact way that Heath Ledger does it in this movie. And I thought that was really funny, and it was a very specific thing to lift from another movie. But yeah, this was fine, and if you want to put this up against any other YouTubers turned filmmakers, look no further than the Philippou brothers who did Talk to Me,
Mm,
last year.
yeah.
And these guys are like still in diapers and crawling, whereas like the Philippou brothers are like running marathons basically. In that like they're sort of running circles around these guys, I think. And yeah, we'll see what happens. I could see a movie deal in their future though.
And I have to comment that there's no like trailer of this, so that's why I could only just
Mhm.
find like the poster and stills for it. Because otherwise, I'm
Yeah.
trying to like pull clips out of an hour long, movie, and I didn't have time for that. But
Mhm.
this is intriguing. But did you think that they genuinely have the potential to get up and run at some point, or are they going to be set up to fail? They'll get some interest. Someone will throw a few $100,000 at them, and will get some kind of straight to streaming version of it, like a Shutter exclusive someday, or like are theaters in their future?
I think they could make something of themselves because they were definitely hampered by the budget thing. It's I think a majority that the $800 budget I think I heard that they said that a majority of that $800 went towards the one professional actor that they did hire, like they actually hired. And the only reason that I think they had to hire him is because he was like a 60-year-old man. And I don't think they knew any like 16-year-old men because they're just a bunch of kids basically. They're a bunch of college age kids. And so they had to hire this guy. And I think with a proper budget, they could do something. This is, I mean, totally like, even whether or not we want it, I think they're gonna get it. Like Neon has probably already like contacted these guys, or A24 has probably already contacted these guys, and they're like, we'll throw you a cool $1 million, and let's see what you can do, basically.
Or Blumhouse or somebody like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm gonna transition now to something totally on the opposite end of the spectrum. Um, on the watch list here, Angie sometimes gets these flights of fancy, and she's like, "I want to watch this very specific movie that isn't streaming anywhere, even though it is a Disney-owned property." All right, this is Hollywood Pictures, one of their like boutique labels from back in the '90s, but it's Simon Birch, which is directed by the same guy that did the original Daredevil movie. I guess the only Daredevil movie. Have you ever seen this movie?
Oh yeah,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I remember this. Yeah, this is like one of those like quintessential like '90s family films.
Yeah. And it's one of those like '90s family films that is specifically targeted at like red meat Christian America from the '90s, cuz like it's all about faith and like trusting that God has a purpose for you no matter who you are. And of course, like the main character is a little boy with developmental disabilities. He's a dwarf. He's got problems moving around, but he's got a friend who's like the only bastard's child in this tiny town. And like watching this again, the vibe that I got, because it's set in Maine, it's like you would almost think that this was some kind of like bizarro Stephen King story, where like
Mhm.
what if Stephen King wasn't a nihilist and he instead had some kind of like evangelical bent to him. But the actual writer of this, he's somewhat he's pretty well known from what I understand. What's his name? John Irving. And
Mhm.
and I noticed something in the beginning of this that got me asking questions and turning to Wikipedia, and it's called like suggested by a prayer for Owen Meany, which is the book. And that was something that John Irving asked for, because he was like, I love the script and I think you guys are going to make a good movie, but it is nothing like my book, because there's this whole other side to the book that's a flash forward of the Jim Carrey adult version of the Malizello character, who like he's like a draft dodger during Vietnam, so he's like up in Canada just remembering his past, and I had no idea of that aspect of it. But the real reason to watch this movie for me is Oliver Platt, playing
Mhm.
the boyfriend of the mom character, who's also a drama teacher, who just like brings a stuffed armadillo as like a get to know you gift, which has lots of comedic possibilities built into it. But god damn, is this a fucking depressing movie. It is
Oh
so
yeah.
fucking sad. And then it just reverses course into being, oh, we're just gonna have a whimsical 1960s soundtrack, coming of age adventure with like a boy grabbing a girl's boobs at a nativity play. And you're just like, what? Like the whiplash is insane. But like
Mhm.
this was on Siskel's like top 10 for the year it came out, and everybody else just kind of viewed it as middling, and just way
Mhm.
too saccharine. But yeah, they don't make movies like this anymore. That is for sure.
Yeah, the one thing that you had kind of said that the movie sort of in some part involves like religion and faith, but not in like the way that we would think of it nowadays, where, you know, these 90s family films, the one thing that I'll give them credit for is 90s family films were they were sort of a little more dangerous, I guess, for lack of a better word, where it's like we can actually put this incredibly sad, depressing stuff in this film and trust that a child could handle it. Whereas nowadays, they would never do something like that. It's sort of treating children as like fully formed individuals who have these emotions, of being happy and being sad. And I don't know, there's just something about how sad this movie is and how other 90s family films are also sad in a similar vein. And they sort of are confident in a child being able to handle something like that. Whereas nowadays they're like, they would never do something like this. So yeah, I remember this one very, very well from my childhood.
Yeah, that's
right. But yeah, speaking of religious themes,
exactly.
my next my next thing, I just got a couple of quick hits here. I think the first one is Evil. This I've touched on this show plenty, so I won't belabor the point. But the show did have that series finale, and they made it to the finish line, and it's always awesome when you can see the creators of a show being able to end a show on their own terms. And from what I understand, Paramount basically came to the showrunners, Robert and Michelle King, and they basically said, "We're going to give you one more extra long 14 episode season. Go and land the plane. Like, go and do it." And so they did it, and it was great. And if you haven't heard the pitch before, Evil is essentially X-Files but with religion. And the premise is basically the Catholic Church, they send a priest, a psychologist, and a scientist out to investigate these cases of like supposedly supernatural religious events, like miracles and possessions and demonic hauntings and people claiming to be prophets and stuff like that. And it just so happens, of course, that between these three investigators, one of them is a believer, one of them is agnostic, and one of them is an atheist. So the show brings all these interesting questions, about philosophy and religion and faith and belief and stuff like that. And it's really, really interesting. But at the same time, the show gets really, really weird, and it gets really, really violent, and sometimes it borders on like exploitation like film. It gets gross, it gets violent, and I cannot believe that this show at one time was on CBS, and it was like sandwiched between like Young Sheldon and NCIS. It's so wild to me.
Oh my god! Yeah, what were they thinking?
Yeah, it's so crazy. And eventually, it did transition over to Paramount Plus, where they could just do a lot more. But yeah, it's been a great 4 seasons, and it was a good time to end the show before it got stale, because with these sort of episodic shows, they only have a shelf life of so long before you're repeating the same plot lines over and over. And suddenly you'll find yourself as being like sort of in the same position. I think that like Black Mirror finds itself, where your creator is taking like literally 2 to 3 years between seasons because he can't come up with anything interesting, and is just sort of treading the same ground over and over and over. And so I'm glad that they ended it now, and it was great. And so yeah, go watch it. It's all on Paramount Plus now. So I would advise people to watch it.
And speaking of going stale, that was definitely a problem of the X-Files at the time.
Yeah, it was.
Even before Mulder was cut loose, they ran out of things to do, and I've put off watching this for far too long, so I'm gonna have to do that. But it's awesome. One thing that I have put off watching that you bit the bullet on, is Horizon and American Saga Part 1, which is now on Max.
Mhm.
what is the word on this? I love how you described this in the doc.
Yeah. Yeah, so oh man, I watched all 3 hours of An American Saga Part 1. And first of all, I'll say I love the pitch for this. I had no idea what this movie was actually about because I find that it was sort of impossible to tell by the trailers for this. But um the actual title of the movie is referring to, basically, there is this printing company that prints out all these flyers, and they hang them all over the United States, advertising for this free land in northeastern Arizona. And they basically say, hey, if you can go out there to northeastern Arizona, you can have this free land. And the movie essentially follows all of these disparate groups of people from all over the US, basically heading to this one spot in northeastern Arizona to try and grab up this land. And I had no idea that's what the actual plot was, and I really like that premise. But the way that Kevin Costner chooses to execute on it is basically like, "Fuck you! I'm not telling you shit," because this movie is like it's a movie that is made up of a bunch of deleted scenes is the best way that I can describe it, where nothing feels necessary, nothing feels like it's advancing any sort of plot. It all just seems like incidental deleted scenes, and we don't know why we're following these people. We don't know the names of half of them. Like, he just introduces people and he's like, here, follow these people for 15 minutes. And then he moves on to the next group and he's like, follow these people for 15 minutes. And, ostensibly, what this movie is supposed to converge on is all of these people finally getting to this one spot. And then Horizon, An American Saga Part 2 is basically going to be about what happens once all of these people we've been following have finally made it to their destination. But it just doesn't work for this movie because it's just so boring, and we don't know why we should care about any of these people. We don't know why we're following half of them. We don't know where they came from half the time. And yeah, this movie contains exactly one good scene, and that's the scene you've probably seen many, many times in the trailer where Kevin Costner is like about to get in like a gun duel with a guy, and they're sort of walking up this hill, and it's in the trailer. The line is like, "We got a bad man right here," or something like that, and so you'll probably know what I'm talking about. But um, everything
It's
else is
possible.
just incidental.
That's the line.
Everything else feels like a deleted scene, and yeah, this otherwise this movie sucked, and I I don't even want. They say, they delayed part two, an American Saga part two, because they said that they want to wait until people discover the movie on streaming, and that's not going to happen. Nobody's going to care.
So this begs the question: should this have been a TV series? Should this have been a limited series on Paramount Plus alongside Yellowstone? No, we're recording the show.
I don't I don't think
At
so,
the end.
because
Okay.
I mean, even if it would have been a show, I could see the vision. I can see why people say that. I can see the vision for
Yeah.
the show because
Okay.
it could be like, in this episode we follow these people, and then in this episode we follow these people, and in this episode I could see the vision for a show. But the failure of the movie, all it comes down to how Costner decides to direct it, because you don't even know until like the last half hour of the movie why, like, what is even going on. You're just like, and I think Costner is trying to be like artsy about it. Like, you can tell he's probably like, ooh, like, this is, if I don't explain what's going on, people will think my movie is artsier. But no, it just doesn't work. It just, we have no idea what's happening. And so um I could see why people would say it should have been a show, but I don't think it would have necessarily been any more successful.
because he has like his dream would be to have like two more movies in this, right?
Yeah, and apparently, despite how badly the first movie did, I think they were in the middle because he filmed one and two back to back or on top of each other. And then the third film went into production when the first came out. And so we are, I believe, going to get three of these, whether we like it or not. But the fourth one, the supposed fourth one, I guarantee it's not going to get made.
Oh, dang it. Well,
Yeah.
there goes his ranch that he had to mortgage to pay for all of this.
Yeah.
Moving on now, we're going to head into the main event for today, the Irish horror film Oddity.
Yeah. So I think I got the intro for this one. I guess I'll start by saying I love movies like this where the pitch is completely different than the subsequent film that plays out. And essentially, the pitch for this movie is a strange man knocks on your door and he claims that the last time that you were outside, that somebody followed you into your house and that you need to unlock the door so you can flee. And that prologue to me, it feels almost like a campfire ghost story. And so I was in on this film from the get-go. And it's funny because this scenario is resolved in like the first 10 minutes. And then the rest of the movie, it revolves around like psychometry, I think is how it's pronounced, ghosts and a blind medium and like haunted objects. And it sort of simmers with dread and foreboding. And I think the movie pays off with a bunch of really, really well-timed jump scares, in my opinion. And I really, really was vibing with this movie for like the first hour or so. And then I think the downfall of Oddity is that the central mystery is resolved really, really quickly with about a half hour to go in the movie. And I think any audience member with a halfway decent head on their shoulders, they'll come to the answer even faster than the movie does, than it's actually revealed. And it was very predictable. But and then also the ending too. The ending brought about a really, really jarring tonal shift that sort of embraces humor a little late in a movie that is otherwise very, very deathly serious. And so I was sort of, as like the credits started rolling, I was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that was the ending. And but I feel as if, a flat ending, it hardly ruins the preceding 90 minutes. And I really, really like parts of this film. And I think others are a little less successful, but overall, I enjoyed it. And yeah, that's kind of where I'll leave it for now. But yeah, Chuck, what did you think of Oddity?
I think you're kind of right on, as far as its rise and fall in like when it's succeeding. But I rather enjoyed the sting at the end. It's like
Okay.
because this is the most bungled revenge movie I think of all time, in that the character who is seeking revenge is just totally inept at it if the goal is to survive. And I was a
Mm,
little disappointed when yeah, like if you're paying enough attention, you know exactly what has truly occurred. Like there's the mystery itself is it's not Agatha Christie. It's
mhm.
it's fairly obvious. And when like the one of the leads essentially is just sitting there like she is not Ozymandias being like, oh yeah, I've already won a half an hour ago. But there are, I think, some like she's had contingencies, as far as like executing her plan. Even if I don't
Mhm.
succeed with what I'm trying to do, I have like she has like a dead man switch essentially, to like initiate the event at the conclusion of the movie, which has been set up, like Chekhov's gun, from early on. But yeah, it has an interesting premise. I was really unnerved by the presentation of like the two of figures in this who like wind up killing someone or nearly killing someone, especially that wooden mannequin, which was just completely like fucked up. I did not like it. I did not
Yeah.
like how it was like throughout the movie. It's just sitting there with that grotesque look on its face, and I'm just sitting there waiting for that thing to start fucking moving, because I know it's going to, and when it does, it paid off. And yeah, it's just a little slight, like the when I compare it to like other like indie horror movies from recent years, like When Evil Lurks, for example. That movie was a fucking dynamo compared to this one. This one is just very laid back. It's very kind of like 70s retro in its approach to like what is going on with like how like the haunted objects angle of it. But I just wish that the main character that we meet in the beginning, or at least like they're played by the same actress, they're twins, and her twins plan kind of, she unravels it herself by giving the game away. And I feel like there was a very different movie that could have been made if they had maybe a little bit more budget and ambition to like make it more about her haunting her brother-in-law's home with his new girlfriend in it, and just having more set pieces within, but they dialed things back, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because they very well could have completely failed in that endeavor. Like she could have like visited like over a longer period of time, introduced more haunted things in the home, because she's just waiting for him or her to slip up enough that they conjure something that ends them, because that's her stated purpose, is her revenge. But then to just like at the close of her plan, just to be like, before she actually has him in the trap, to be like, aha, I know exactly what happened, and I thought about killing you, but instead I'm just going to ruin your life professionally. Like that was a mistake on the character's part, and it beleaguered my belief to accept that she would undo her everything she had been doing like that. But maybe I'm wrong about that.
No, I'm sort of on the same wavelength with you, where they introduce this like store that she has, or this like weird curiosity shop with all these haunted objects. And this movie has kind of the same problem, in my opinion, that the like first Conjuring movie had, where we see this huge room that the Ed and Lorraine Warren have in their basement that's full of all these haunted artifacts, but then you like barely get any time to spend there. And it's like, no, I want to go back there. Like I want to see what's going on over there with all that stuff. And eventually they do remedy that in one of the later Conjuring films. But yeah, this one does kind of the same thing, where it's like, it would have been interesting if Darcy would have used a sort of wider variety of haunted objects to torment Ted.
Yeah.
But it's clearly like, a budgetary thing, I'm sure, and probably just a time thing too. They just don't have the script or the running time to do something like that. And so it would have been very, very interesting to see that. But as far as like the movie that we did get, I really loved like anytime the movie scared you, because I'm hit or miss with jump scares personally, but I thought this movie executed on them really well. Like, oh my God, that one with the tent, where she is in the tent and suddenly the killer, his just face comes in from out of frame, peeking in the tent at her. God, that was like almost unbearable, the tension in that scene. And then just like the smaller stuff too, like when the new girlfriend of the husband, when she's in the house by herself and she goes in that upstairs bedroom and finds the camera, and then eventually the dead woman, the dead sister, shows up, and she's just like, run. And then she runs out the door, the front door, and then the door is open and it's just pitch black, and then suddenly you see the woman's face like poke out of the darkness at her and then like slink back into the darkness. Oh man, that shit gets to me, and that was all really really well done, I thought. Anytime the movie was actively trying to scare you.
And like those small moments pay off.
Mhm.
They definitely do. Like, and that's what makes it kind of frustrating, because it's like the McCarthy's capable of so much. Like, I haven't seen Caveat, his previous film, but now I really want to, because
Mhm.
this he really shows that he has a great grasp for executing in a satisfying way and not a cloying way. The horror, as a cinematic experience, and I guess that's where like I need to soften my criticisms a bit, because if you're just sitting down for a discrete experience, oh boy, like this movie fucking slaps. It's good.
Mhm.
People aren't wrong, in their praises for it. But yet again, the tendency from the critics is just to take the new hotness in horror and act like it is the singular event of the decade. Not just the year. It's like, you're not going to, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Like, that's how far back they go. And I'm not sure it's there. It's like, it's not an entry in the canon, as it were. But as far as 2024 goes, it's up there. It's just
Yeah.
not as satisfying as, say, like Long Legs was. And
Mhm.
but by all means, support stuff like this, because we'd much rather have this than the dreck that gets slathered and slopped out by Hollywood in the horror genre on the regular. Yeah, like this took
Yeah,
a
the you mentioned the rabbit or caveat, and there's that movie is about like a stuffed rabbit animal, and I really like how McCarthy he's almost building his own little universe,
okay.
because if eagle-eyed viewers will see that in this movie, in the curiosity shop, the rabbit is on the shelf. It's actually right there. They just showed
Ah,
it in the trailer, and the rabbit from Caveat is in this. And then also, I was looking at McCarthy's YouTube channel, because he's one of those guys who got his start doing horror shorts on YouTube. And that character right there, Ulin Bool,
yeah.
the weird man with the glass eye. If you go to McCarthy's YouTube channel, he has a short film entitled what is it? It's what happened or what killed Ulin Bool is the name of it, and you can figure out why Ulin Bool, or no, not what killed. How did Ulin Bool lose his eye? You can figure out why Ulin Bool has the glass eye in the short film, in McCarthy's short films. So that's kind of cool, I think.
And there was some good, like good writing that like I enjoyed involving that character, when the orderly is like talking to him and asking his name, and he's like, "Oh,
Hmm.
Ulin, like how many eyes in that? One eye." Like a little bit of
Yeah,
a bit of a pun in there. That's
yeah. The writing,
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to me
some
that
of the
he's building
dialogue
a
was.
universe like that. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. Yeah. It's yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it's and you wouldn't ever know it if you didn't think to look for it, or if you didn't go and look on his YouTube channel. But yeah, you mentioned the writing, and yeah, a lot of the dialogue was very good. I did enjoy like when the girlfriend and the sister were sort of when they had their scene when they were alone together at the house, and they were just kind of verbally like sparring with each other and just being passive aggressive to each other. All that stuff was really really good. And so yeah, the dialogue was fairly decent. Um and yeah, I mean, I really I don't want to turn people off this movie by any means. I do think it is a good movie for a majority of the runtime. I just think that it's hard to make good on a lot of its mysteries. And then I just to expand on what I said in my intro about the ending. For me, the sort of ending with the bellhop, it was a little too corny after this movie had been so serious through the running time, because
Yeah.
what I expected, because they do a good job of setting it up at the beginning of the movie, where she says like, oh, the last guy who rung this, they say that you ring it, and then you hear somebody like running up behind you, and then you die, you're dead. And so that's what sort of you were led to expect, was that he was going to ring it, and then all of a sudden, one final jump scare, and they sort of subvert your expectations. And that's not the part that I didn't like. The part that I didn't like is just the fact that it reminded me, frankly, of the ending of Beetlejuice, where all of the ghosts appear on the stairwell behind Lydia Dietz, and they're like dancing, the ghosts of like the football players. And I don't know, it was just a little corny for me.
The more effective thing to do would be have him ring it and then do his look about, to make sure that he's okay, and then just end it there, and leave it
Mhm.
more open as to like what his fate is, instead of clearly establishing that, oh yeah, he's gonna get spooked. He's gonna get spooked good,
Yeah. Yeah, or even just end it before you see anything. Like maybe we hear the sound of like rushing footsteps behind him, but then it cuts before we actually see anything, or before anything happens to him. Something like that. I think would have been more effective, and it would have kept more in line with the like deathly seriousness of the preceding 90 minutes. Um, but but yeah, I mean, that's kind of like I said earlier. I don't think that the final 30 seconds of the film hardly ruin the rest of it. I don't think, in my opinion. And so yeah, I would fully endorse this movie. It's currently only available to rent, but it is going to be streaming on Shudder from what is it, September 27th, I believe.
Okay,
So yeah.
so more people will be able to see it that way, more than likely. Do you anticipate that we're gonna get a sequel focused on what happens to the Curiosity Shop? Is that how we get more in like
Mm.
more of an entry into this expanded McCarthy universe?
That could be cool. Yeah, I mean, that could be very cool if he does that. I'm not sure what if anything he has lined up right now. I should have checked that before we started recording, but yeah, I mean, I could totally see that. That would be really, really interesting, because yeah, we do see all this stuff that is like um there's like a I think there's like one of those monkey things. I mean, we're already getting Stephen King's The Monkey, about one of those monkey things that goes like this, and you see one of those in the Curiosity Shop. So I don't know. I guess in some ways, maybe he did that on purpose, because he knew that they were making a movie based on that thing, and so um, that could be interesting.
Definitely. Well,
Mhm.
that's our featured review. That's Oddity. Check it out if you dare. Because it does kind of have the vibe of a spooky story you tell in the dark, or like you say, a campfire story throughout its runtime, and that people
Yeah. Oh,
enjoy.
most certainly.
Yeah. And moving on to the mentionables, you took in the sights and smells of the Midway at the Minnesota State Fair. What can you report?
Yeah. So I think I touch on this every year. I mean, it's one of my favorite times of the year, one of my favorite days of the years, going to the Minnesota State Fair. I mean, a lot of people say it's the best one in the country. I think there's kind of a rivalry between ours and then Iowa as to who has the best one. But for my money, it's this one. And yeah, I tried all the new foods. The new hotness this year, as far as like the new foods went, was deep fried ranch. Did you hear
Yeah,
anything about that?
I have heard so much about the deep fried ranch.
The deep fried ranch,
Like
yeah.
what is that like?
Well, it's basically
Not
like
yet, not yet.
it's not explicitly ranch. It's a little misleading, because if you took like ranch dressing and tried to deep fry it, it wouldn't work. It's too soupy, it's too runny, it's too liquidy. And so what it is instead is they basically mix like ranch dressing with like cream cheese to like thicken it up a bit. And so it's basically ranch flavored cream cheese that's in there. And so it's really overhyped, in my opinion. It's yeah, I mean, I went the lines for the deep fried ranch were like an hour to like an hour and a half. So it's like, no, don't waste your time.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, in my opinion, I think you put a couple of the pictures I sent in here, but in my opinion, the better new food item this year was um the buffalo chicken and cheese curd tacos,
Mm.
which was my favorite thing from this year, and that was very, very good. But yeah, it's running for I think 3 more days. So if you are in sort of the greater Minneapolis area, yeah, take it in. We're gonna have a beautiful Labor Day weekend here, and so yeah, go if you haven't, because
When I
it's
got
it's one
almost
of
done,
my
I just want
favorites. It's a
to get 30 more
quintessential
minutes.
Minnesota experience, like one of the quintessential Minnesota experiences. So you gotta go.
And see, God, like looking at all these pictures and hearing these reports, it just makes me look at the North Dakota State Fair, which it is my obligation every year to cover, and just
Yeah,
shake my head and just be like, we are I know we're North Dakota, but that's the definition of small potatoes. You guys have like a freaking sky tram to sit on. Like we have
yeah.
we have the same 10 food vendors every year with nothing new, no variety. We changed nothing. It's
Mhm.
it's
You
it's
got
it,
Motley Crue.
it's so played out. It's so played out and boring. Dude, like Lil Wayne was like
Lil
delayed.
Wayne, yeah.
He was delayed in coming because of the CrowdStrike snafu with like airlines and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And when he showed up, I'm gonna like everyone just walked away disappointed because he didn't play a song at like all the way through. He'd play like 60 seconds of a track, and then the DJ would just merge it into the next one. No, let
Mhm.
go of that. If you want to talk in the microphone at the
Yeah,
end,
that is
please
like
do.
the quintessential like rap show where the artist shows up late. They're just like, okay, I gotta do a medley. I gotta get in and out before the noise ordinance laws kick in. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No, it was a problem, but I need to go. Like if I because I think the claim that it's like the best in the country is pretty fair because I think
Mhm.
like you guys are at the forefront of fair food cuisine. Like it's hot cuisine that you guys have going on. My mentionable, I haven't admittedly put a lot of hours into actually playing it, but the process of getting Fallout London running on a computer is
Mm.
it's crazy. Like all like yeah, they try and like ease it out because it's like it all depends on what you own Fallout 4 on. And since this is a full conversion mod, they are taking the base game of Fallout 4 and just completely rewriting it. So if you own it on GOG, it's easier because it's on an older patch before they rolled out the next gen update that kind of broke a lot of the modding community for a while. And they are unable to roll Fallout London forward. So if you have Steam's version like I do, you have to jump through this fucking process, run all these different, like unpatching processes, but eventually after like 6 hours, you can play this thing. And it is like it is so cool to see another culture's take on the Fallout universe and to see the attention to detail that they have to make the Fallout experience quintessentially British. It really pays off. Instead of a Pip Boy, you have like a PDA basically that you have to hold in
Mm.
both hands. So yeah, immersion breaking if you whip it out in the middle of a fight, but I guess you find something else to complain about. But like its whole approach is refreshing. Like the writing and the voice acting is insanely good for something that's a free mod, and it just really makes you mad that Bethesda doesn't like give an actual group of developers a shot to play in the sandbox like they did with Fallout New Vegas again. Because like say what you will, Todd Howard, you will never forgive Chris Avallone and the crew that made Fallout New Vegas for making a better game than you did. And in this
Mhm.
instance, people in the community have gone and done that. Like the instead of calling ghouls ghouls, because because this is on another continent, from the United States set games. They call them commuters because a lot of the people who are ghouls,
Oh,
irradiated
they were in the
people,
subway.
they were in the subway. They weren't protected. They were on a bus or something. So they walked away as monsters, or like appearing to be monstrous. And they have like unique, and that's the thing that this really does well. The amount of unique factions going on in this game is really hard to keep track of. But they set them all up in the opening narration. There's a very unique like group called the Thames folk, who are all of these like gilled up fish people, who have been mutated, due to all the time they spend in the irradiated Thames River. And instead of a dog meat, you get Winston, you get a bulldog companion, things like that. It's a once you get it running, I haven't had a lot of the bugs that people have been complaining about. It's a worthwhile experience if you are okay with breaking your Fallout 4 and not being able to play it until you're done with London and going through the reinstall process to get the base game back up and running. But if you want to do something, you have a unique experience, if you have a PC, this is worth checking out because it's such an indictment of just how small the ambitions and imagination of Bethesda has become when a group of fans can get together and produce something as special as this is.
Yeah, I've heard of this. I mean, people have been talking about it a lot in the past couple weeks, and I really, really want to play it because, yeah, like you say, it's so sad that we haven't gotten like a Fallout thing. I mean, a real Fallout thing, not fucking 76 or whatever.
Yeah.
But like Fallout 4 came out, I think now 6 or 7 years ago, I want to say.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what are you doing, Bethesda? Because you have people making stuff like this, and from what I hear, I guess the rumor is that Bethesda, for some reason, instead of working on a new game, they're working on like a remaster for Fallout 3.
Barf.
And it's like, what? It's like, why? Why are you doing Fallout 3 when, you should be doing 5 or whatever comes next,
Yeah, and just to shout out other fan projects that are in the works that, could like leap to this kind of quality. There are people taking Fallout 1 and 2 and converting them into like, Bethesda style Fallout
like 3D
games, 3D.
Okay.
Which is something that they've sworn they'd never do. But if the fans want to do it, more power to them. There's people that are working on a proper like isometric version of the never released Fallout Van Buren, the original Fallout 3 that got canceled before Interplay lost the license. There's just a richness to this. Like even like if you look at like the other full conversion mods, like Enderall for Skyrim, or the Forgotten City, which was just like a modded quest line that eventually got its own game that switches from the Skyrim universe, the Elder Scrolls universe, to just being about ancient Rome. Like that is really neat too. And there's a future for all things like this. And, they could easily, if they were given the resources to like make their own assets, the Fallout London team could probably make a really good post-apocalyptic London looter shooter just as easily as like piggybacking off of Bethesda's technology. But that does it for us this week. You're going to be getting my belated minisode about Short Max and other bite-sized garbage doom scroll content. That's a bizarre world. And Matt is going to have a minisode on the 9th, how to tell when and where new movies will hit streaming, which is a struggle, admittedly. But I'm interested to hear what resources you've come up with. And further out, we are anticipating reviewing Rebel Ridge on September 16th, the latest Jeremy Saulnier movie. So keep your eye out for that. But as always, thank you for watching if you've made it to the end here. And thank you, Matt, for always joining me.
Yeah. See ya.